Welcome to the Tory Burch Foundation Small Business Webinar Series. My name is Sahara Lake. I'm the Programs Manager here at the Foundation, and we are so excited to have you here for this conversation. Before we get started today, I want to thank the sponsor of our Small Business Webinar Series, Campaign Monitor. They are joining us in our mission of providing free resources and support for small business owners and founders. And so I just want to give a big thanks to them for supporting us in our mission. So I still see some folks coming in, so just want to say welcome again, but we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to introduce our speaker for today, Sylvia Inks. Sylvia is the founder of SMI Financial Coaching. She's a business coach, a finance expert and speaker, and she teaches small business owners how to grow profitable business by focusing on systems, cash flow, and building multiple income streams. She is also an author of the book, Small Business Finance for the Busy Entrepreneur, Blueprint for Building a Solid, Profitable Business, which is a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And we are so excited to welcome Sylvia here today. And today she will specifically be talking about how to choose a cost structure, build a profitable business, and prepare for tough situations. Sylvia, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to say to everyone a few housekeeping things. So after Sylvia's presentation, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. Be sure to use the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to get back to those questions at the end during the Q&A session. And Sylvia also has some interactive moments during her presentation where we'll be using the chat function as well. So I just want to make you aware of both the chat and the Q&A. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So Sylvia, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for joining today. So I've worked with a lot of small business owners who are great at what they do. They have a great product, they've got a great service, but secretly they're behind the scenes, they're financially overwhelmed. They're not making the money that they need or want in their business. So that's where I am doing here today is I want to share with you the 5 secrets to financial success. So quick look, I will ask for introductions. We'll cover common goals of small business owners, cover over some of the pain points that small business owners have, and then we'll jump straight into the secrets. So again, who am I? I am a business coach and a financial expert focusing with coaches, consultants, and service-based business owners. I do have the book, Small Business Finance for the Busy Entrepreneur. And my passion is to help entrepreneurs just like you save and make more money by creating additional income streams. Because I grew up in a family that talked about money all the time. We talked about at the dinner table, and I didn't realize that not everybody grew up that way. So a lot of the money lessons that I learned were from listening to my father, who was both an employee as well as a small business owner. So I'd love to hear, just find out who you are. So if you guys can type into the chat, would love to know who you are, what type of business you have, what's your legal entity? Are you a sole proprietor, an LLC, a partnership, or a corporation? How long you've been in business, and what's your biggest pain points today?
Starting to see some things come in the chat. Sylvia here, we have a lot of folks, LLC, new business, sole owners. We have some doulas, sole proprietors as well. I see a pain point here from Angelita. She said consistent billing. She's a sole proprietor, started her business in 2013. Some B Corp, S Corp folks as well. Looking for some additional pain points here to share with you. Most folks seem to be in business around 3 to 8 years. A lot of people are looking for some help with pricing their services as well, Sylvia.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all. So feel free to, again, to type into the chat. Would love to hear more about who you are. So 3 common goals that I see as small business owners, whether you're new or existing, you've been in business for 5+ years. Number 1 is to make money, right? Otherwise, it's called a hobby. 2 is to save time. And 3 is to reduce stress. However, the reality is that I see that most small business owners are not making the money that they need or want in their business. They're not saving time. They're actually working more hours in their business than they ever expected or did in corporate America. And a lot of small business owners haven't reduced their stress. They're actually more stressed than ever before. And again, so would love to know, you can, put your hands up in chat. Does any of these statements sound familiar to you? I'm great at what I do, but I'm not good at finances. I'm overwhelmed. I just need one more client to pay off my debt. Taxes stress me out so much that it makes me break out in hives. And I'm afraid to pay myself. So if any of these sound familiar to you, again, you're in the right place. We're going to jump straight into the secrets now. So number one secret, make sure that you are protecting your family and business. So I love that a lot of you said that you are an LLC. So I will caution you, for those of you who said you're a sole proprietor, just know that being a sole proprietorship is not actually a legal entity. So when you do that, you're operating your business under your personal Social Security number. And so you do want to make sure that you are running your business at a minimum as a LLC, because this way it separates you from your personal assets from your business assets. I actually had a business lawyer in Raleigh tell me once that she was representing a client. She was a dog walker who was running her business as a sole proprietorship. And when she was walking a dog, the dog ended up attacking a cat. And the cat ended up having to go through $1,000 worth of vet bills, thousands. And the cat owner ended up basically suing the dog walker as well as the dog owner. And because the dog walker was running the business as a sole proprietorship, her personal assets, including her personal bank accounts, her house, her car, everything was at risk as a result of her doing her business as a sole proprietorship. So please make sure that you're running your business as an LLC. And if for some reason you have a CPA that tells you to, I hear a lot that people tell me, oh, well, my CPA tells me that I don't need to be an LLC until I'm making over a certain amount of money, like $40,000 worth of in my business. So I would caution you, if you have a CPA that tells you that, definitely shop around and look for another CPA, because you don't, if you were ever going to get sued in your business, you would be seeking a lawyer, not a CPA. So do make sure that you're talking to a lawyer about a legal entity for your business. Now, with that said, just know that the IRS will treat you one and the same. If you're a sole proprietorship or an LLC, you do fill out the same exact form. It's called a Schedule C. It's a Form 1040. So if you have a CPA that tells you it's going to cost more money to do your taxes if you're an LLC, again, look for another CPA, because this form is exactly the same. It's the same form if you're an LLC or a sole proprietorship. The biggest difference is if you're a sole proprietorship, you are running, again, your business through your Social Security number. But if you're an LLC, then you would have what's called an EIN number, so an employee identification number. And again, this number is free, so this is something you get for the IRS. So if for some reason you see on a website, hey, pay this money to get an EIN number, do know that that is a scam. Okay, and then just know that as you're running your business, a lot of times people may ask you for a W-9 form. So if you're running your business through an EIN number, again, you're protecting your Social Security number. So again, try to make sure that you're not giving out your Social Security number as you're running your business, because it just opens you up to fraud. Secret number 2, separating your personal and business finances. So make sure as you're running your business that you actually have a separate personal bank account and then separate from your business bank accounts. And I picture here, I actually had a business owner who told me that every December, her husband would give her all the statements from their credit cards for the entire year and hand her a highlighter and ask her to highlight everything that she remembered as a business expense. So it just gets really messy when you're commingling and you're using a personal credit card to run both your personal expenses and your business expenses. Because when you do that, number one, you're probably going to miss expenses. If you're trying to look through, pages and pages of expenses, you probably will forget that one of the expenses were business expenses. And the downfall for that is that you're going to owe more taxes. So if you don't claim something as a business expense, then you don't get to deduct that from your business. So that is one. And then if you ever accidentally claim something as a business expense that wasn't truly a business expense, if that comes into question, you get audited, you will end up having to owe back taxes on that. So just easiest thing is to make sure that you have two separate bank accounts, completely separate. So your personal bank accounts separate from your business bank accounts. In terms of examples of business bank accounts that you can have, certainly there's the big box banks like the Bank of Americas and the Wells Fargos of the world, and you likely have your personal bank accounts there. But I would recommend you as a small business owner, a lot of times those banks are not that friendly. Their fees are not that friendly to small business owners. So I would recommend you to look at more of your smaller community regional banks. For those of you on the East Coast, Southern Coast, you might see the First Horizon, First Citizens Bank, and BB&T. A lot of times they will have either low fees or maybe no fees at all to open and maintain a business bank account. And then as well as credit cards. So again, make sure that you have a business credit card for your business. I always recommend 2 business credit cards in case you're traveling for business and one, if for some reason one card gets stolen or what have you, you would have at least another business card that you could use while traveling. And there's a lot of business credit cards out there. Just look to see what rewards they have. Chase Inc. is a really popular one, as well as Capital One, the Smart Business Credit Card. So I'd love to know from you guys, how often do you pay yourself an owner's draw or salary?
So some folks initially, Sylvia answered never, they're not paying themselves. Some people, it seems to be on a monthly cadence or a weekly cadence, or honestly more sporadically, but we definitely have folks who have never paid themselves as small business owners.
Okay, good. So I'm glad to see that some people say they are paying themselves monthly. I love hearing that. Again, making sure that you are creating this business in a way that you're treating yourself kind of like an employee, right? Like you wouldn't not pay an employee monthly or say, oh, I'll sporadically pay you. So try to make sure that you're paying yourself on a monthly basis. And secret number 3 is going to help with some of you who feel like you can't pay yourselves yet. Secret number 3 is going to help you with that. Oops, excuse me. Sorry. So secret number 3 is to create a cash cushion. So making sure that you have a business emergency fund. A lot of people here in the personal finance world having a personal emergency fund, but there's not a lot of talk about having a business emergency fund. So you do want to make sure that you have a cash cushion. I would recommend at least 1 to 3 months, especially if you have retail space or you've got rent, probably on the higher end of that. But making sure you've got a cash cushion so that if months are a little bit slower, that you still can pay your bills or you can still pay yourself if something were to happen. And the reason why I have a picture of an airplane here, I actually had a client who didn't have a cash cushion, and she was asked to present, do a leadership conference, and was going to be paid a couple $1,000s for a 1-day event. However, she didn't have the money to pay for a plane ticket and the hotel ahead of time, and would have had to wait 30+ days after the event to get reimbursed. So she had to turn the gig down. She had to turn the job down. So then here's an example where having a cash cushion would have allowed her to actually make more money in her business. So I'd love to know, do you have an emergency fund for your business?
Good mix of no's and yeses, a few not yet. So people are looking to have that cash cushion, but probably are not sure where to start given the early stage they're in.
Okay. If you don't have an emergency fund yet, maybe start with 1,000, right? Like do a baby step. And, even if it's $10 a month, or if you get an extra $10 or money came in unexpectedly, just start, open up a savings account and just start moving money there, and start with a small goal of building up to 1,000. Right. Secret number 4, don't try to do it all. So I know it's very easy as a small business owner, especially when you're starting out, to feel like you can't afford to hire someone and you try to do everything yourself. You're burning the midnight oil. I'll share an example. So I actually had a client of mine who was doing everything herself. She didn't have her inventory system up to date. And so she ended up finding out that she would end up taking orders from her website, promised clients a delivery date. But then when it was time to make her product, she realized that she was out of stock of something. She was out of stock of one of her inventory items. So then she would have to pay rush shipping fees to get her inventory item to herself to make the product, and then had to pay rush shipping fees again to get it to the client on time. So she was out $25–50 every single time that she was out of stock of something. So that's where, had she, paid somebody up front to help her get some of her systems into place, she wouldn't have been out that money. So sometimes trying to do it all will actually cost you money, either cost you time and money, or cost you, customer service or quality. So there are instances where making sure that you do invest in the systems and tools to be able to do the things and run your business. A few examples of tools that I would recommend that all small business owners make sure they have is a scheduling tool. So I don't know how many of you have ever tried to schedule a meeting with a prospect or a colleague or client and had to trade 3, 4, 5 emails back and forth to get a date and time. So just note that you may lose out on prospects and customers when you do that. Take that time going back and forth on trying to find a date and time. There's just a lot of time that you frankly, just as a small business owner, can't afford to waste, right? There's lots of tools out there. I see Calendly is one that a lot of small business owners like to use. Book Like a Boss is one that I actually prefer over Calendly, but certainly just having any calendar tool where you could give somebody a quick link and say, hey, would love to schedule a date and time to meet. Here's my link to book a time that's convenient for you. That just eliminates the back and forth. And I'll just share as a personal example, I did have a scheduling link, but I did have a prospect who was willing and ready to hire me. But because we couldn't find a date and time to meet, the dates in my calendar didn't work on my scheduling for her. She ended up hiring somebody else. And so I was out a $2,000 just from not having another separate link that I was willing to work with her on. Upwork is a great place if you have design needs or graphic design work. I certainly, for those of you in business, if design isn't your specialty, or website design, hiring somebody on a freelancer on Upwork to get it done is a lot better than trying to spend hours on your own time trying to figure out how to build a web page or how to create graphics. So Upwork was one that's really, really good. And then social media. I know social media can be a big time suck right there. So if you are trying to make sure that you are staying, present on social media, using tools like a social media tool scheduler can help make sure that you can preload content from social media and be able to have that scheduled and sent out on a daily basis to make sure that it looks like you're present, but that you're not spending all that time up front. And then secret number 5, make sure that you are using an invoicing and payment system. I'm not a huge fan of cash and checks, especially because there is an IRS requirement every January if business owners are using cash and checks for their systems. So I would make sure that you have an invoicing and payment system that one, can send out invoices, and 2, be able to track. And you can track to see if a client's opened the invoice. And with tools like invoicing tools like FreshBooks and QuickBooks, you can automatically add late payments and late fees or automatic reminders. So for other tools, people probably are aware of PayPal and Square. So just know that PayPal and Square are more like point of sale systems. So they're really great with taking transactions. However, they do not have the accounting reports similar to what FreshBooks and QuickBooks would have that your CPA would need to do your taxes. So things like your profit and loss statement is something FreshBooks and QuickBooks would have that PayPal and Square do not. FreshBooks also will allow you to see who your most profitable client is, or what's your most profitable product or service that you offer. So there's just a lot more accounting tools that you can use in tools like FreshBooks, as well as sending recurring invoices. So let's say you have a client that's on a retainer basis that you're billing monthly, or maybe you have a 12-month contract, things like you can set up those invoices ahead of time in FreshBooks. And that way FreshBooks or the system will automatically send reminders to your clients that invoices are due. And so it's not you following up with the customer, it's already automatically sent to them on from the system. And then you can even add late payment fees, whether it's a percentage basis or a dollar amount, and then it's automatically added. So it's a great way to, make sure that you're getting paid upfront. I've even had clients who, again, cash or checks just gets a little messy with reporting as well as checks. Sometimes checks don't get mailed to the right place. So there's just a lot of kind of just delays with accepting payments from cash and checks. So recap of the secrets of financial success. Number one, make sure you're protecting your family and business. So make sure that you do have at least an LLC for your business. 2, make sure that you're separating your personal and business finances. So opening and making sure that you're opening a business checking account as well as a business savings account for your business. Number 3, creating a cash cushion. So making sure you have a business emergency fund that's separate from your personal finances. And number 4, just try not to do it all. Make sure you're not doing it all, the things that you're not good at or don't have the time for, investing in tools to help you do that. And number 5, using an invoicing and payment system. I'm going to open the floor back up to feedback and questions.
Great. So we have a couple of clarifying questions that folks had, and then I want to get to some bigger questions. So we started, Sylvia, talking around not filing as a sole proprietor, but rather as an LLC. And folks are wondering how they would switch over. And I think someone also had a clarifying question around a corporation and how that would be different.
Great question. So I'm not a CPA or a lawyer, so I definitely would seek out a lawyer on making sure that, switching over from a sole proprietor to LLC, but really you would go and apply. You would look for your business, apply with a business name, and hopefully your business name is available as an LLC, and just working and making sure that's available and applying for the LLC in your state. So each state has their own kind of rules. So I would say, just look up Secretary of State and then plus your state's name and look what the process is there.
Right. And then I think a clarifying question also around an EIN and running your business through an EIN and not having an LLC. Is that still possible? Is that still what you would recommend?
I've heard of people being able to do like a sole proprietor and having it having a separate, I think it's through the DBA, and having a separate number. But again, it's still running the business through your personal name, right? So it's just DBA, it's not a separate entity, it's just a different name. So it's still talk to a business lawyer and make sure that you are protecting yourself legally. I would say pretty much almost every business lawyer and CPA that I've interviewed and have told me, it's from a legal standpoint. You do want to make sure that you are legally separating yourself from your business. In the event that should anything happen and you get sued, a client sues you for your business, that you make sure that your personal assets and your personal, finances are still intact and not kind of crossing into that into the lawsuit.
Great, thanks. And then Nolene asked this question in the chat, and a few other folks asked a similar question, but Nolene said, how much should your salary be when you were just starting out and revenue is not quite steady?
That's always a good question. So again, I would make sure that you are finding a way to pay yourself, even if it's just $10 a month, right? There's 2 ways, I talk about it in my book. There's 2 ways that you can pay yourself as a small business owner. Either one, you can pay yourself a set amount. So you decide up front, here's how much I'm going to pay myself out of the business every single month. Or 2, you can decide on paying yourself a percentage of last month's profits. So essentially you would wait until the month end, and then you would look at what your sales and expenses were. You look at the profit and give yourself a percentage of what's left over.
Great. And then a few folks asked questions around the cash cushion. So I know you said, Sylvia, around $1,000 of cushion, but is there a certain percent that you would recommend?
Again, I would shoot for the 1 to 3 months. Having a cushion of 1 to 3 months is ideal. And, especially if you tend to have, rent or employees that you're going to be on the hook to pay regardless if business comes in or not, I would shoot on the higher end.
Right. And then Jen had a specific question So she feels good about her cash cushion, but she asked, do you recommend investing part of the, if she has kind of excess cushion, do you recommend investing part of it in a brokerage under the LLC, or should she take an additional owner's draw or salary?
Ooh, so I'm not an investment expert, so I definitely don't want to give any investment advice here, but certainly, I always recommend having at least actually 4 business bank accounts. So I go more into this in my book, but the first one's your operating expenses. The second one's your for taxes. The third one's for your emergency fund. And the fourth one is what I call the long-term savings fund. So any bills that you pay on a yearly basis, making sure that you're saving monthly to build up that cushion. Or if you have extra money that that you're going to be investing something in the future, moving that money into that fourth account. So then as you start seeing that fourth account build up, that's when you're going to feel more confident to pay yourself more.
That makes a lot of sense. And then folks, I think, missed the calendar tool that you would best recommend. I know there were a lot of recommendations from other entrepreneurs in the chat, so I recommend folks going back, but would love to hear your recommendation, Sylvia.
Absolutely. I love Book Like a Boss, and I can probably share it on my website. I actually do a comparison of Calendly versus Book Like a Boss, so feel free to check out my website for that. So I do comparisons of why I like Book Like a Boss over Calendly, as well as on my resources page. On my resources page, I do have all the links to all the tools that I recommend that will help you run your business more efficiently.
Great. And then Jordan Taylor, I'm going to read her question here in the Q&A. She says, what are some resources for people starting off with literally $0 for their business? Are there funds for people who haven't made sales yet? Are you expected to bootstrap at that stage?
So, I mean, the hardest thing with the business, it does take money sometimes to make money, right? Like you do need to have certain tools in place to be able to run your business. And some stuff you can kind of bootstrap at the beginning, but really, I recommend everybody to start thinking about what are the things that you're going to have to consistently do in your business that you're not going to be able to do once it scales up. Certainly there's certain tools, like I said, on my resources page, I have kind of like a list of what I consider the must-have tools if you're running an online business, service business. If you don't have, a ton of money starting up yet, I would try to see, is there a way that you can, have your personal life, can you fund some money into the business and call it basically kind of owner's investment into your business, or even a loan into your business, right? And keeping track of that. But I would say that a lot of times it does take money to make, start your business and make the business run.
Yeah, I think, Jordan, the second part to what she shared isn't necessarily a question, but Sylvia, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts here. She said, people often say go to friends and family for bootstrapping, but this is a huge barrier for women who do not come from families or communities where they're able to do so.
Yeah, one thing that I see a lot of small business owners, I guess, get wrong when they run their business. A lot of times they bill their clients afterwards and they've done all this work up front and then bill afterwards. So a lot of times I would say bill up front then. If you don't have the money, basically incentivize people to prepay, pay up front for your services or pay up front for your products before you deliver the product or services. So that's one way that you could do that if you're kind of strapped for cash.
I think that's a great recommendation. Alana's question here is, my website is run through Wix, which is where I've been running our invoice payment systems. But I'm wondering if you suggest transitioning all of our transactions over to QuickBooks so our finances are all in one place.
It's great to have your finances all one place. QuickBooks and FreshBooks, there's ways to integrate. So even if you have PayPal or Square, as I mentioned in the past, that are just the point of sale systems, they do integrate with QuickBooks and FreshBooks. But you do want to have one system that has everything, because that's going to make it easy for you. So all you have to do is press a button for your profit and loss statement, and you get the report, and that's all the report that you need to give to your CPA to do your taxes.
Right. And is QuickBooks a platform that you would recommend, or do you have a different recommendation?
I do have a blog post on this as well. So I do a comparison of QuickBooks and FreshBooks. I will say that QuickBooks, when it was built, was really meant for people who had inventory. So people who were building products and had inventory and had to keep track of that. FreshBooks, was a tool that came out that was really more for like online service business owners. So if you're providing a service or you're a freelancer, FreshBooks is going to be a lot easier to use and maintain. You don't have to pay, a bookkeeper or CPA to set it all up correctly the first time. It's really, you just set it up, you plug in all your services that you're providing and your pricing, and then you start billing people. Where versus QuickBooks, it's a lot more complicated. If you set it up wrong, you have to actually pay somebody to redo it all. So again, QuickBooks is going to be more, if you have an inventory-based business or retail, it's going to be, that's probably going to be the tool that you definitely need. But then FreshBooks is going to be something for online service business owners.
Great. It's a lot of good questions in here. Is there an ideal, Rachel Clark is asking, is there an ideal growth projection of a small business startup to be earning a standalone salary for yourself?
So again, this is all going to vary based off of your needs and stuff, but I would definitely, just from general numbers, I would say, before, make sure you talk to your CPA to find out what your tax rates are. But I would say, when you start your business, just from the top, just account for 20% for taxes. Like just, you may be more, you may be less, but if you save 20%, that's going to be, you'll make sure that hopefully you're not going to be under saving for taxes. Operating expenses, I always say around 40%, maybe more depending on what type of business you have, but shooting about 40%. And owner's draw, I would say I would shoot in the 15-20%. So looking at 15-20% of your profit coming in would be for your owner's draw, and then the other 20% saving that for long-term investments, because there are going to be things as you grow your business or you need to hire employees that you're going to want to save that money and have that ready to be able to pay.
Yeah, I want to. I'm kind of jumping back and forth here between the chat and the Q&A. So someone asked around not just paying yourself, but paying employees. So folks that have freelancers or contractors on their payroll, how do they calculate paying for themselves and their employees?
For your employees, I mean, definitely you want to look at the market rate and make sure that you are paying, that you're going to be able to pay for the market rate for your employees. I would also just make sure that you understand what the costs are to bring on employees. So there's always an online, a startup cost. So any onboarding costs to hire an employee, as well as ongoing. So there's always going to be ongoing fees, whether it's, license or, tools that your employees need. So really just look and make sure that you're factoring all that in. So it's not just going to be your employee's salary that you're paying, but it's also going to be the cost to actually keep them as an employee or any license or insurances that you're going to have. So just making sure that you can cover all that, and looking at your sales pipeline and making sure are you going to have enough sales coming in that's going to be able to pay for your employees. And then for yourself, for your personal side, again, it would go back to look at your personal life and figure out what are your personal expenses that you are incurring in your personal life, and figure out how much do you want the business to be able to pay you to be able to do that, right? Like, again, looking at, you're not going to be working for free if you were working for somebody else's business. So figuring out for yourself, like, what do you need from the business to be able to run your personal life and be able to pay for your personal life?
There's a question here from Larica that says, are there any tax saving strategies you are aware of, or any special deductions for 2021 given COVID?
So that's a great question. I would definitely talk to your CPA about that. I know the rules change every year and I'm not a CPA, but definitely for, if you're starting out, again, the best place to start, go to that Schedule C form that I had showed at the beginning, Schedule C, where you can look at all the types of deductions that you're able to take for your business, and just make sure that you're saving all your receipts accordingly, making sure that anything that you're doing to run your business or to start your business, that you're saving those receipts aside. And if you ever have questions, those are the things that's great to have, type up, have a list of questions that you're going to ask your CPA, and try to check in with your CPA. I would say at least once a year, maybe even 2 times, one before the end of the year and one before taxes are due, and just make sure that you're getting all your questions answered so that you're not missing any deductions.
Yeah, I think sticking on the trend of COVID. When your business is facing challenges, challenging financial situations due to things like the pandemic or just other economic challenges, what would your advice be for protecting cash flow and keeping their business afloat?
Yeah, so again, building that emergency fund. So anytime that you have a little bit extra money, making sure you're putting that aside into that emergency fund so that you have that built up. And then again, is there ways that you can incentivize people to pay up front? Is there a way that you can build up and create bundled packages and incentivize people to buy more from you? So really thinking outside the box to figure out like what can you do to generate either more business or new business. And anytime you're getting that extra cash, just building that emergency fund, again, the 1 to 3 months.
And then what is a sign financially that your business is struggling? What are like the kind of red flags that folks want to be aware of?
Yeah, the red flags are if you are not able to consistently pay your bills every month. And this all starts from making sure you have a written budget. I will say probably over 50% of the business owners that I work with don't have a written budget. So they have a general idea of how much their business is spending, but they don't have a clear idea exactly what bills are coming out every single month or once a year. So making sure that you have that number, and then that way you can figure out, are you actually covering your bare minimum expenses every month? And if you have tools like the FreshBooks, that's going to connect both your bank account as well as your credit cards, you will be able to see that on a daily basis. Like you literally can go in, press for the profit and loss statement, and can see how much money came in that month and how much money came out. And then you can look over time, over per month, are you profitable? And if you're, not profitable for 3+ months straight, there's something that's got to change. Either something has to change in your sales or your expenses have to go down.
Yeah. And I lost someone's specific question, but folks did have questions around budgeting and your recommendation for kind of short-term, long-term budgeting. And then other folks are asking if you have specific budgeting tools that you would recommend.
I do. So in my program, Master the Money in Your Small Business, I do actually go through and help business owners create their first budget. So I do have a tool through that. But the biggest thing I can share with you is, create that list, making sure that you have a list of every expense that you've signed up for. So little subscriptions, even, if it's your calendar tool or it's your business insurance or even your LLC, your annual report filing dues, like make sure that you have a list of every single thing that you are on the hook to pay, regardless if business comes in or not, because those are the things that need to be on your budget, and you need to have a list so that you understand how much your average monthly spend is.
Yeah. And then any tools that you would recommend specifically, Sylvia?
Again, it's a budget tool that I have. It's through my program, so it's
Got it.
I do have a tool in my book as well, so you can also get a copy through my book.
Excellent. And I also saw some additional questions around taxes. How do I set myself up for success with tax declaration at tax time each year?
Yeah, so again, I'm not a CPA, but there are 3 things that I would say to make sure that you are, not stressed at tax time and making sure that you're maximizing your tax deductions. So number 1, I would make sure that you set up a meeting with your CPA. So come with a list of questions with your CPA of like specific questions that you have, and just do 30 minutes to an hour and just make sure you guys are on the same page. Number 2, again, go through that Schedule C form and make sure that you see all the possible different categories for expenses that you can deduct, and making sure that 3, that you're saving your receipts, and make sure that you do save your receipts and have a system to save it in. My personal favorite is Office 365. It's a cloud system, and you can also use the app. The app will allow you to take a picture of your receipt and it goes straight to the cloud. That way, if you are ever audited, again, you can be audited for 5+ years. So if you are ever audited, you do need to be able to produce all those receipts. And if you can't, you will end up having to, basically back out those deductions. So again, 3 things I would say: make sure you meet with your CPA at least once a year and ask questions. 2, make sure that you are looking at Schedule C form so that you do know what possible expenses you can be deducting, as well as 3, making sure that you have a system and tool to be able to save those receipts each tax year, as well as if you ever get audited in the future.
That's some great guidance. I want to ask a few questions around pricing goods and services. So for a lot of our entrepreneurs joining us who run product-based businesses, what is your advice for determining product pricing and markups as well?
Yeah, great question. So I know a big mistake that I see a lot of small business owners do is that they price their products based off of competitors without looking at their own cost of goods sold. So the biggest advice I would have is making sure that you're very clear on what the costs are to create your product. And making sure that it's very detailed and you understand what your bottom line is, because you can, and making sure that when you price your product, that you're above your cost of goods sold, and two, that you're factoring in any possible discounts that you do in the future. I have had clients who have priced their products and services, and while they price it at $500, $600, they didn't account for when they did future sales. And so in the future, when they did a 25% sale, we looked at the numbers, and all of a sudden they actually didn't make any money. So making sure that you just go ahead and upfront account for any discounts in your pricing. Even if you're not going to offer discounts then, if you ever were to offer discounts in the future, you need to make sure that you're still profitable.
Yeah, and thinking about offering discounts or maybe even lowering prices, what should a business owner decide, or when should they decide to lower those prices or have a sale without seeming desperate to sell merchandise?
This is always a good one. So I'm not a huge fan of discounting or doing sales. And I guess it always goes back to, like, if you think about some of the big box, businesses that always give sales, if you think about like the Bed Bath & Beyonds or the Kohl's of the world that are always giving coupons, like how many of you have ever like walked into one of those stores, forgot a coupon, and then just walked right out? Like I have, yes. Right?
Totally.
Like, oh, no, I shouldn't pay for this because I know I can get it on sale later, or I've got the coupon for it. So I feel like if you are constantly giving sales, you are training people to look at you only from a cost perspective, from a price perspective, and you're only attracting those price conscious customers. So instead, I would look to figure out, how do you increase the value of your products or services? How do you bundle things together, like to make it more attractive? So instead of discounting, is there a way that you could bundle some things together to make it make more money on that average order sale, but that you're not technically discounting? Or is there a way that you could offer bonuses? Right, like I've seen this work really well in the online world, where it's like you're adding additional bonuses, like maybe you do behind the scenes interviews, or give people a secret copy of a video that no one else on your website or podcast will hear. So like, is there a way that you could add additional value and not have to discount?
Yeah, and then also it'd be great if you can give some cost strategies for service-based businesses versus product-based businesses.
Yeah, I think again, going back from the cost perspective, I would again think through like making sure from a percentage basis. Again, it's going to vary, but I think I mentioned it before, like 20% off the bat for taxes, right? Like just making sure that you've got that number aside, 40% for operating expenses, another 20% for your owner's draw, and then another 20% for your long-term savings fund. And you can tweak that from there, like depending on your business or where you are. But I would just say try to make sure that you're already accounting to pay for yourself up front, as well as for future investments, because I've never seen any business grow that hasn't poured back business into themselves, whether it's coaching, conferences, other things. So you're always going to need to invest back into your business.
Great. And one last question for us, Sylvia. I am a new entrepreneur who is not yet well versed in the language of finance. What is your advice to new entrepreneurs for how to best understand the concepts without getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, this is a good one. I know finances can be super scary. I know a lot of people don't come from a background for finances. So I will say, probably maybe shameless plug here, but I will say that I know a lot of small business owners have read my book, The Small Business Finance for the Busy Entrepreneur. And I really made it as simple as possible. I have a glossary, definitions. I've had people tell me that they didn't even find this information out from their own CPA. So I would say start there. I really tried to make sure it's very clear and useful in terms of the finance, the terminology, so that you can actually apply it to your business without getting lost.
Yeah, I think that's great guidance. I think we have time potentially for one more question. I'm seeing a lot of questions trickle in, so I'm trying to get to as many
Sure,
as
of course,
possible.
yeah.
someone asked when we were having a conversation around pricing, how do you set up wholesale price for e-commerce? Should retail and wholesale price, how should retail and wholesale be priced? Should they be on the same page or separate?
This is a good one. Again, so my specialty is more on the service-based business owner side, but I would, depending on your business type, again, the wholesale versus retail, you just have to decide whether or not you're going to share that information. And I certainly see people will say on there, hey, for bulk pricing, contact me. So I would say, again, that's wholesale pricing is probably not my specialty there, but again, if you're worried about pricing or making sure that people are comparing your pricing, you may want to just even say contact me for further pricing.
Totally. And then now, really last question to close us out, Sylvia. What is the one thing that all entrepreneurs can do today to set themselves up for financial success?
Yeah, the biggest thing I would say is to have a written budget. I will say that 90% of the business owners that I've been able to help, literally have found upwards of $800 to $1,000 just from doing that one simple exercise. Or it's also given them the confidence to raise their prices, because once they realize, here's how much it takes to run my business. Oh, well, now I know why I can't, be the low price provider in the area, because I have already this amount of money that I'm already on the hook to spend.
Great. Well, thank you, Sylvia, for that really robust Q&A, and thank you everyone so much for participating. We're very grateful for you to be here, lending your expertise to our community. And I just want to say, I know that my team put the book one more time in the chat, but just to say it aloud, the title of Sylvia's book is Small Business Finance for the Busy Entrepreneur. Sylvia, is there anything else you want to share? I saw you had a bonus slide before I close us out for the afternoon.
Yes, thanks. Again, for the book, here's just a quick picture that you can see, and then you can go to smallbusinessfinancebook.com for more information on where to buy it, and as well as the bonus freebie. So again, you guys asked a lot of great questions today. One of the things I see is that a lot of business owners just are looking to earn more money in their business. So I have a freebie for you guys. And if you go to smifinancialcoaching.com/Tory Burch, you can get the this freebie here on 5 steps on how to make more money in the next 30 days.
Great. Thank you, Sylvia. So